Chapter 11, Donatella, Finale. Paloma looked like a wicked version of Scarlet. Tella didn't know where her mother had found new clothes, but she now wore a floor-length black leather coat with short sleeves that showed off long garnet red gloves. They were the same color as her corset top. On her legs, Paloma wore fitted bone white breeches, which tucked into black leather boots that went over her knees. A dagger rested in the sheath, snug against her calf, with a thin silver rope wrapped around her opposite thigh, like a pet snake. She looked brutal and beautiful, like a criminal who just escaped from a wanted poster, a myth who ripped herself free from a story to give it a different ending, and Tella desperately wanted to be a part of that ending. "Please don't leave again," Tella cried. Then she was running, brawling through the cavern, leaping over the stream of red and into her mother's arms. Tella hugged her with everything she had. Maybe, if she held on tight enough, she wouldn't have to let go this time. Tella wanted a different ending, too. She wanted one with her mother and Scarlet smiling and laughing and making wondrous plans for the future. "You shouldn't be here," Paloma said, her voice sharp, and yet she didn't release Tella. She stroked her ratty curls with a tenderness Tella had never been able to capture in her memories. "I knew you'd be fierce," Paloma said, "but don't tell her. This is a fight that will destroy you if you don't walk away." She dropped her arms. "No!" Tella grabbed her mother's wrist. She'd hold on for the rest of her life if she had to. "You belong with Scarlet and me. I don't know what you think you need to do, but please come back to us." "I can't." Paloma tried to shake free, but Tella refused to let go. "You need to get out of here. It's not safe." "My life hasn't been safe since you left." Paloma's hazel eyes turned glassy, and her face gentled at last. "I hate that you've experienced so much pain, but I'm only going to bring you more. I'm the one who's dangerous tonight, Donatella. I'm here because I need to kill someone." "No," Tella argued, even though she felt the blood drain from her face. "You're just saying that to make me leave. I wish I were. But there are things from my past that I need to make right, and I won't risk letting you and Scarlet get involved. I've made countless mistakes, but you and your sister are the only things I've made that have brought something better into this world." Her daring smile returned, giving Tella hope that maybe her mother didn't really want to do this. Tella only had to convince her of that. "Just come back with me to say goodbye to Scarlet," Tella pleaded. "She missed you too." "I wish I could." Paloma reached up and cupped Tella's jaw. "I would go with you, but I have to do this, or you and your sister will never be safe." She stroked Tella's cheek, one gentle touch, before she slipped her gloved fingers onto the back of Tella's neck and pulled her closer. "I love you so much, and I'm sorry." Something sharp poked out from the tips of Paloma's gloves and pricked Tella's nape. She felt a bite of cold and a sense of liquid being injected into her veins. What? Her tongue felt suddenly heavy and useless. She wanted to ask what her mother had done. She wanted to ask why she suddenly couldn't move her arms or legs. She wanted to say so many more, but nothing came out except the one powerless what. Her mother had only pulled her close so she could paralyze Tella with the tips of her gloves. This must have been what she'd done to the knocked-out guards. "It will be all right," Paloma soothed, her hands hooked beneath Tella's arms, but nothing felt fine. Tella couldn't believe her mother had left her, then drugged her, or that she was now dragging Tella's body toward the mouth of a cavern. Tella tried to fight, but her limbs wouldn't obey. She could barely even feel them. Her mother finally stopped on one of the cracked wheels of death, the kind of circus performers strapped women to, and then threw knives at while the wheel spun and spun. Her mother didn't strap Tella to it, but she did tuck her behind it, hiding Tella between the circle and the granite wall. "No, don't do this." Tella tried to object, but her tongue was so thick and heavy she couldn't even manage to squeak. "You should fall asleep soon. Once you wake up, leave this city with your sister. I'll find you when I can." Paloma kissed Tella on the cheek, her lips lingering longer than before, but despite what she said, she did not feel like an "I'll find you later" kiss. This was an "I am planning on never seeing you again" kiss. "Mother." Tella tried to shake the numb from her lips. She wasn't passing out like the guards. Her mother must have used up most of her poison on them. Tella could feel tingling on her toes, but she couldn't get them to move. She couldn't even call after her mother as she walked away. All Tella accomplished was a ragged breath, but the sound was so pathetic it was muffled by the grades of footsteps entering the cavern, heavy and pounding, the sort of footsteps that wanted to make an entrance. Tella didn't know if it was her mother's drugs, but the air grew hotter as the menacing sound came louder. The intruder moved close enough for Tella to see a pair of masculine boots caked in dust, but the figure continued past, not even pausing as he spun the cracked circus wheel in front of her. It ground alive, tickling like an off-killer clock as it rotated. Click, click, clock. Tella didn't like the sound, but it allowed her a view of the tavern where the fractured wedge of her wheel rotated her way. Her first peek, between the broken crack, only lasted long enough to see that sparks now filled the cavern, as if the air was on the verge of catching fire. The tiny flames danced around the man, making the gold on his red military coat sparkle. He stood right in front of her mother. Paloma looked much smaller than before as she lifted her face toward him expectantly. "I fear to see you for the last time," she said. The wheel continued to rotate, obscuring Tella's view once more. When the crack reached Tella again, the intruder was stroking her mother's hair, as her mother was gazing up at him with adoration in her eyes, as if she'd been waiting for this clandestine meeting even more than Tella had been longing to reunite with her. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. "Garber?" Paloma said his name, as if it were a secret that only she'd been told. "I missed you so much. I hoped you'd come back to these ruins." The wheel continued to spin. When the fragmented piece came around again, the man's hands was in her mother's hair. "You are beautiful as I remembered," he said. Then his lips pressed to hers until a swirl of flames in the cavern surged brighter. The sparks in the air glowed like stars. Tella could feel their heat from behind the wheel. Tella was going to be ill. She wanted the wheel to stop, to block her from seeing anything else, but instead it began turning faster, as if it was enthralled by the kiss. Tella prayed to the saints for the embrace to end, or that she'd at least regain her ability to move, to fully block it out, but her limbs remained numb and the kiss went on, intimate and burning and so very wrong. Clearly her mother hadn't come here to murder anyone. She was here because she wanted to be with this man more than she wanted to be with her daughters. Tella might have felt a knot in her stomach if she had more sensation in her body. "My memories of you do not do you justice." His lips had moved to her jaw. "I'm glad you missed me too," she said. "I thought of you every day." His mouth thrilled to her ear, but what should have been a whisper echoed throughout the entire chamber, a picture all the way. "I will get my revenge against you." Click, click, clock. The love story had just gone very wrong. For several tense seconds, Tella's heart raced. She couldn't hear anything other than the wheel until her mother's strong voice grew louder when she said, "Gabriel, I made a mistake. You forced me back inside that cursed deck of destiny once you learned I was a fate. That's a very intentional error, Paradise." God's blood and teeth. This man, this fate, had been trapped in the cards too. Her mother had just kissed him. What was she doing? She pushed away her own daughter so she could cling to one of the monstrous immortals who only saw humans as pawns and fragile sources of entertainment. Tella didn't know which fate he was. He could have been the assassin, the fallen star, the poisoner, the apathic, or chaos. It didn't matter. All of them were demons. Tella wanted to scream at her mother to leave, but Tella's tongue was still thick. Her lips were numb. All she could feel were a few rebel tingles that even in her mouth had moved. Even if she warned her mother, Tella doubted Paloma would have responded. Her mother already knew that man before her was a fate. She probably knew which one he was and what terrible powers he had, and she didn't appear to care. Another spin of the wheel showed Paloma leading into the fate again. "It was warned that you kill me to keep yourself from falling in love with me," Paloma said, her voice much more tender than the way she spoke to Tella earlier. "I panicked, Gabriel. I did what I thought I had to defend myself. We both do what it takes to survive. That's one of the things we've always had in common, but I regretted the choice ever since. Why do you think I'm here now?" "That's what I've been trying to figure out," he said. Tella had made fates before, the Prince of Hearts and the Undead Queen. The fate's voice was even colder, his presence more commanding and powerful, the little flame around him sparkling with his every word. But Paloma didn't pull away. "There's nothing to figure out. I'm here because I wanted to be with you." She rose up to her toes. The wheel whirled, blocking out what happened next, but the surge of silence told Tella they were kissing again. "Do you still want revenge?" Paloma gaped finally. "Or do you want to be with me too?" "Maybe revenge can wait." His mouth returned to her mother's. Tella started to close her eyes. She couldn't watch any more of this, but just as she was about to stop looking, she got a glimpse of silver in her mother's hands as Paloma pulled out a knife and quickly dug it into the fate's heart. A roar echoed across the cavern. Tella could have cheered, but she wasn't sure what her mother was doing. Fates were immortals. If they died, they just came back to life. But maybe her mother knew something. Tella did not. She held her breath as the wheel came around yet again. But the fate wasn't lying on the ground or falling in a temporary death. He was standing staring at Paloma as if she truly surprised him. Then in a flash, too quick for Tella to see, his massive hand pulled out the dagger and thrust it into Paloma's chest. and twisted. She let out a sound that Tella knew she'd hear in her nightmares forever. It rocked the cavern walls, as Tella tried to scream too, but she couldn't even manage a whisper. Her lips were still tingling with numbness. There was a similar prickling sensation on her limbs, but it wasn't enough to move them. She tried to crawl on her belly, out from behind the wheel, and somehow save her mother, but all Tella could do was watch. The wheel of death slowed to a crawl. Click, click, clock. Everything had been moving too fast, and now it was all going too slow. When the wheel finished its turn, Paloma was totally still on the ground, while the bleeding Fate looked down at her. Get up, get up, get up! Tella finally got her fingers to move. Her toes were getting feelings too. But her mother wasn't moving at all. Tella dug her fingers into the ground until they started to bleed, but it wasn't enough to propel her forward. Even the wheel had ceased spinning. The Fate fell to his knees, but her mother remained on the ground. Tella managed to crawl forward an inch. She wasn't ready to give up yet. Her mother couldn't be dead. Her mother was too strong to die. Tella had fought too hard to lose her. The story wasn't supposed to end this way. I will rip your arms from your chest. You son of a... A hand clumped over her lips, cold and sweet, like apples and faded magic. Quiet, my love, Jax whispered. There's nothing you can do for her now except keep yourself alive. His cold fingers stayed in place until after Greyville finally died, from the wound her mother had inflicted. His massive body fell to the ground. The cavern should have filled with silence, but Tella could hear the pieces of her heart as it shattered.